Hello everyone, we are students from your Temperature Alam. Would like to present our article analysis entitled The Negative Impact of the COVID Pandemic on Malaysia Food Service Industry. Our ELC group is HM252282 and this slide is well prepared by me, Akid Nur Haziq bin Nazuri, my friend Muhammad Nazim bin Azmi and Nurul Hismaira, Nelisa binti Nur Hisham. For the thesis statement, there are many negative effects of the COVID pandemic on the food service industry that adversely affect business in Malaysia. So, for the point number one is workforce. The affected workforce in agriculture, farms, food and beverage, production and processing plants, and distribution networks are analyzed to run the risk of promoting the spread of COVID-19, the transmission of which can occur during various activities of coordination. There is also the risk of the food safety concern as the virus spreads through the medium of product output when trade occurs between different stages of the regions and supply chain, and also labor is scarce. The corporate level workforce is also at a high risk of being affected by the epidemic owing to its constant exposure to different stakeholders in the industry and contact with the coronavirus affected persons. Several countries have imposed travel bans, affecting the availability of critical personnel who are required in key decision making. So, for the point number two is demand supply volatility, food manufacturers, processors, food retail, and service outlets. Food retail and food service outlets are expected to face more intense challenges right from the beginning. When it comes to food retail outlets, the challenge is to deal with the possibility of the irregular footfall of consumers and contrastingly also assesses the possibility of stockpiling food and beverage product to ensure con- continuity in consumer access to products they intend to purchase. As a result, food service outlets are experiencing challenges with declining consumer foot traffic and a shortage of staff, also food supplies. In recent years, the potential risk of virus transmission through public the virus the potential risk of virus transmission through public contact has drastically affected consumer visits to food service outlet. So we go to the point number three, and Melissa will continue. For the conclusion, in conclusion, the workforce will be the cause of the spread of the COVID-19 virus. If many industries make mistakes during product production coordinations, when the demand supply volatility becomes high, some service stores experience the possibility of the irregular footfall of consumers and contrastingly also assess the possibility of stockpiling food and beverage product to ensure continuity in consumer access to products that it intend to purchase. So we continue with the next point. Melissa may continue.
For the third point is raw material supply agriculture and livestock industries. Agriculture produce, which serves as a key raw material for later stages in the food value chain, can be a bottleneck for the food and beverage sector. The next one is the country is a major producer of both ready-to-use pesticides and active chemicals, which are utilized as the foundation for various crop protection products developed in importing countries. Next is supply interruptions can be caused by factors such as a poor logistic owing to traffic control and limits on public mobility in the impact province. The next is in the short term, this may not have a this may not have an influence on the agricultural industry's needs, but protected trade restrictions can have a considerable impact on the agriculture industries of importing nations, driving enterprises to seek out new sourcing partners both in terms of geography and manufacturer. For point number 4 is consumers' uncertainties. Consumer apprehension on the eve of a COVID-19 breakout has resulted in significant uncertainty in consumer demand. The next is various social media posts and false stories have frightened customers and altered their perceptions of a number of food and beverage goods, particularly animal-based one. The next is the government actions aimed at avoiding large gatherings as a means of preventing the transmissions of the coronavirus have fueled the home eating trend among customers. Restaurants all around the world have seen a significant drop in client footfall. Restaurants all around the world have seen a significant drop in client footfall, which has had a direct impact on food service income. So, in the conclusion, the prices of food and agricultural items have stayed steady. A prolonged COVID-19 epidemic may cause economic instability and food inflation. While the short-term effects are more obvious, it is still unclear what long-term effects the COVID-19 epidemic will have on the supply chain and to what extent.
Thank you, Nelisa. Then I will move to point 5, alter food environments. The above-mentioned lockdown action and food shortage have altered the setting and, as a result, the way individuals establish contact with the food system, obtain, serve, and produce food. Due to the closure of restaurants and food stalls, those who depend on foods made from outside home for daily meals were forced to cook food at home. However, due to supply chain constraints, items that had been originally made and packed exclusively for food service were still not readily packaged for selling goods and home consumption. As the COVID-19 epidemic progressed, several nations rushed to temporarily close informal local markets, which administration perceived as possible infection transmission sites, demonstrating as a formality bias in food safety and food policy. Next, we move to point 6, localized food price increases. Food price hikes have also been caused by interrupted supply networks, which have raised the cost of shipment. Localized pricing shifts have been influenced by outbreak behavior, with certain nations seeing localized food price hikes, particularly those that rely on food import. This unequal food price impact is the result of a number of complicated variables, including export limitation imposed by various exporting nations on certain cereal commodities such as rice and wheat. These localized price increases directly impact food security and nutrition by making food more expensive and thus more difficult to access, especially for people with limited incomes. As the conclusion, the changed environment has affected restaurants and eateries experiencing various disruptions in business. This is to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 disease. Rising local food prices have also raised other costs. This is because it is very important to food security and makes food price more expensive.
For the point number 7, it's about farm production faces bottlenecks for some inputs. So the amounts of crops that can be produced on a farm is limited by the amount of the labor available to help with the farm work. Then the ability of the seasonal workers in the fruit and vegetable sector has been reduced in many countries because of limits on the movement of people. The supplies of fertilizers and energy have been relatively less disrupted, and price for major fertilizers have been relatively low. So the global availability of fertilizer is not a major issue, although local disruption have occurred because of transport difficulties. So for the last point is point number 8. The processing has been disrupted by a labor shortage and shutdown. A COVID-19 has sparked disruption in the food industry hit by social distancing rules, sickness-related labor shortage, and lockdown measures to contain the spread of the virus. Many firms have also reported that their employees are having a hard time coming in forward. For example, staff availability was reduced by up to 30% in French meat processing facilities in the regions of the country that were most impacted by COVID-19. Many meat processing plants have been closed down or are operating with reduced capacity because of the economic crisis. Then the meat processors have been slow to buy their products. So farmers have left their livestock with no way to sell them. Increasingly, they are forced to resort to euthanizing animals to prevent overcrowding. Then, for the conclusion is, in conclusion, there have been many changes in terms of the quantity of crops produced because the movement of people is very limited. This has also left many factories labor intensive due to the COVID-19 outbreak.
For the overall conclusion, if a lot of industries make mistakes during product production coordination, then the workforce will be the cause of the spread of the COVID-19 virus. When demand-supply volatility becomes high, some service stores experience the possibility of the irregular footfall of consumers and constrainingly also assess the possibility of stockpiling food and beverage products to ensure continuity in consumer access to products they intend to purchase. Food and agriculture goods prices have remained stable, and ongoing COVID-19 epidemic can lead to economic instability and food inflation. This is because it is very important to food security and makes food price more expensive. While the short-term effects are more obvious, it is still unclear what long-term effects the COVID-19 epidemic will have on the supply chain and to what extent. Rising local food prices have also raised other costs. That's all. Thank you.